Hey, it is Sunday, March 15th, and we had a blizzard here in Minnesota, official blizzard, which is always really exciting. We like to think of ourselves as hardy northern people. And for the most part, I'd say we are. The only time I ever talk to my neighbor across the street over there is when we're snow blowing the driveway after a big storm, today included. Got to catch up on him, talk about the more important things in life. He's out of booze and chew, and that's why he had to get the driveway cleared to go to the store. And we also talked about our deceased grandmothers and mothers, because, it's just what you do. So we're heading down to see Grandma in Florida, and yeah, Florida's going to feel nicer because of this blizzard, I think. It'll be nice to see some people on my dad's side of the family. Haven't seen many of them for years and years and years. And the last time I saw Grandma again was about 8 years ago, and I got to see one of Dad's brothers. Dad has two brothers that are twins. They definitely took very different life paths, and definitely took different life paths than he did. Dad was the golden boy, and his brothers were. One's a bassist who plays in a lot of dive bars as rock bands. He's the one who I met when I was down there. He owned a vape shop and was involved with creating different vape juices for sale. And when I talked with him, he was telling me about the hardships he was going through in his business because the way that the government had mandated that any new flavor of vape juice, essentially, and again, this is back in 2018, so it was fairly wild, wild west at the time, had to pay, I think it was a $250,000 licensing fee to the FDA, which basically meant that anybody who was doing this individually or out of a vape shop in a strip mall in Central Florida, was pretty much cornered out of the market. His twin brother, the guy who doesn't own a vape shop, he's an IT professional. I didn't get to meet him when I was down there, so it's been probably closer to 15 years since I've seen him. But he's a competition barbecuer, so fingers crossed that is some family tradition we'll be able to indulge in. Yeah, I've been thinking about the Wild Wild West a little bit recently. It is interesting to me. My career, I described the first part of it as a Wild West like environment. There wasn't a lot of rules, there wasn't a lot of structure. Now, granted, this was in a corporate healthcare environment, so of course those things existed. But as far as the discipline to do what our company was there to do at these healthcare sites, to transform them from using paper to using medical records, often felt a bit cowboyish. Cowboys might be coming back in season. I think one of the things that was interesting about the wrap up for the Jeff Kaplan interview I was watching the other day is he is working on a game called The Legend of California, which oddly enough, I mean, it's an open world, kind of vast Western setting for a game, but a lot of the gameplay seems to come from a game called Rust, which is really interesting to me. If you haven't heard about Rust, the way Jeff Kaplan described Rust is the most PvP. It is the most PvP thing in PvP. PvP in this sense standing for player versus player. Rust being a game that is infamous and famous for kind of being the epitome of that genre. Rust, in its most basic sense, operates with these servers that are up for a month. Now, there are variable length ones. Sometimes it can be a week or even more. But kind of the gold standard is that you've got a game that generates an island for you. You start naked on the beach with a rock, and you try to build a base and acquire stuff and get strong. And most of that is by way of taking out the other people who are playing with you. In Rust, if you kill somebody, they die. They'll respawn if they have a base that hasn't been compromised. But all of their stuff just drops where they died, so you take all of it. Rust is very much a winner-take-all kind of game, and is very much founded on a sort of intense player versus player ethos that just simply doesn't exist in any other game. So when Jeff, the game designer who was interviewed for 5 hours, former lead of World of Warcraft during some of its best times, as well as Overwatch during its best times, it was really interesting hearing that Rust was a big influence. Not a game I expected from him, not a direction I see many games tending to go, but we are in an era where it's difficult to get truly new ideas, and picking and choosing those that are probably not overplayed yet is super important when making a game. the Steam market, which is a games marketplace online, is absolutely flooded with cheap games. And some of them are novel, but for the most part, they're very derivative at this point. So I think we are in kind of an era of game development that's a bit different from ones that we've seen before. We are not in the wild, wild west anymore. So it is going to be interesting in seeing the civilization traits that are needed to survive in this less wild, less west kind of world.